Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Davidson, the Sexual Integrity Coach. Welcome to another episode of Adult Sex Education. It's my intention to bring you science-based sexuality education that you most likely have not been able to receive elsewhere. Today, I'm going to talk about the concept of pornography addiction. In the past few episodes, I talked about sex addiction concepts, and pornography addiction is frequently lumped in with sex addiction theory. Before I do that, let me thank those of you who have subscribed to this channel. When you subscribe, it helps me reach more people with this free education resource. If you have not subscribed already, please do so. Also, I would love for subscribers to reach out with questions about other topics you would like for me to cover as it relates to sexuality and relationships. So let's talk about pornography addiction. Pornography addiction is another pseudo-diagnosis. It's not recognized by the American Psychiatric Association. It's a label given those who enjoy looking at pornography or for whom they believe they can't stop looking at pornography once they start. It's increasingly common for people to claim to be addicted to pornography because it is so accessible in digital format and one can look at it for hours. Statistics suggest that anywhere between 25 to 50% of internet activity daily is spent searching for pornography. The concept of pornography addiction took hold after the availability of the internet for the general public. Prior to that, pornography was most prevalent in magazines and VCR or 8mm movies. You couldn't spend a lot of time with it because it wasn't very accessible. If it was a magazine, you had to wait a month for the next issue to come out. Looking at still pictures was not that exciting after the first few minutes. If it was a movie, you couldn't easily haul around a VCR or movie projector and screen. So it wasn't until the birth of the internet that the concept of pornography addiction really took off. We were already talking about sex addiction then, and people were already identifying or being labeled as sex addicts for various reasons. But there were those guys who never hooked up, had an affair, or had any sexual activity other than masturbation while looking at pornography. Now they too could be labeled as addicts for acting on their erotic desires. Humans have always been attracted to erotic expression in various forms of art. This includes paintings, sculpting, photography, videography, even erotic novels and illustration. Pornography isn't new. We see erotic images in ancient Egyptian art, carved into the streets and walls of Pompeii, and on cave walls left by indigenous people. Our primitive brains are wired to desire these images, create them in our minds, fantasize about them, and bring them to life. Looking at sexual images is naturally arousing, and this tends to be more true for men than women. In fact, I don't think I've ever met a female who believed she was addicted to pornography. Women do find it erotically exciting and entertaining, but they're not inclined to enjoy it as frequently as men. So porn addict, like sex addict, is a label given to or claimed mostly by men. Men and women are different sexual creatures, as is obvious physically, but is most obvious in the ways we think about sex. These differences in brain chemistry influence why it is mostly men who get labeled as sex or pornography addicts, and why it is men more than women who are the consumers of pornography. Love addiction, which is part of the sex addiction family, is a label given more often to women. When we watch pornography, dopamine levels increase in the brain. Dopamine is a natural neurochemical that allows us to experience joy. When dopamine is released in the brain says, "Wow, that was great. I'll have some more of that." Dopamine is also released in the brain when we use substances like cocaine, crystal meth, or even alcohol. It is this release of dopamine during sexual activity that is the basis for sex addiction theory. This is the primary reason sex addiction theory throws sex in the addiction bucket along with substances like opiates, alcohol, crystal meth, and any other substance to which one can become dependent. These substances cause an unnatural release of dopamine, potentially facilitating addiction. But remember, dopamine is a chemical produced naturally in the brain. It's necessary for motivation to get out of bed in the morning. It is important to help us find joy and purpose in anything. Dopamine is also released naturally when we listen to music, exercise, eat a meal, pet the dog, or have exposure to sunlight. Evolutionary theory suggests that sex releases dopamine for the same reason eating releases dopamine, to cause us to do it in order to survive individually and as a species. It is pleasurable by design. It is risky for us to label those things the brain is innately designed to desire as an addiction. Norepinephrine is another natural neurochemical released in the brain when we look at pornography. This gives us the experience of anticipation, curiosity about what will happen next. We can think of this as pleasant anxiety that keeps us tuning in and staying focused. It is the same neurochemical that causes some of you to like war movies, conflict, soap operas, 24-hour news channels, football, or any other competitive sport. We stay engaged because we want to see what will happen next. Pornography addiction has never been validated as a real addiction because our brains naturally respond to erotic images and enjoy erotic images for self-soothing and pleasure. Self-soothing is an important skill for emotional survival and optimal mental health. Men frequently report that they use pornography in conjunction with masturbation when feeling bored, lonely, or anxious. This private solo experience is often described as his me time. So why do men believe that they are addicted to it, and why might they seek help for their use of pornography? Generally, the answer is because he got caught by the woman in his life. His wife, his girlfriend, or his mother discovered that he was masturbating to pornography and objected. He feels ashamed. Maybe he has tried to stop using and still finds himself drawn to it. When he's accused of being sick for enjoying pornography, he thinks something must indeed be wrong with him because he enjoys something the world tells him he should not enjoy as much as he does. He has tried to make himself stop liking it, but he can't. It sounds like an addiction, doesn't it? Or is it reasonable that men enjoy sex? When men come to me seeking help for their pornography use, I always ask if they would be seeing me if the woman in his life didn't object. Almost always the answer is no. When I ask what consequences he is experiencing because of his porn use, usually the main consequence is that his wife or girlfriend doesn't like it. When we dig deeper and talk about his sexual relationship with his spouse or partner, there is often sexual conflict in their relationship related to discrepancies about frequency of sex or desired sexual activities. Pornography is an easy way to supplement what he believes he might be missing in the relationship. Religion has played a huge role in why men and women carry so much shame for our innate erotic desires and behaviors. Our expectations of ourselves and our partners are frequently unrealistic. Couples avoid communicating about their sexual appetites and desires early in the relationship because they believe this will simply work itself out or ultimately doesn't matter. Secrecy and shame drive deception and betrayal. This is the force behind the lack of sexual integrity in many long-term relationships. There are myths about pornography that I hear from opponents on a regular basis. One myth is that pornography exploits the vulnerability of women. This might have been true 150 years ago when women were not allowed to be educated or work in public. Women then were dependent on their husbands or fathers to sustain them. If they were widowed or had some other misfortune where there was no man to take care of them, then they had to make money in the only ways they were permitted. Sex work, including pornography, was one of the options afforded to women in the culture that devalued them as anything other than wives or mothers. But today, women earn bachelor's degrees more frequently than men. Women are physicians, attorneys, CEOs. To suggest that women today go into sex work because they aren't smart enough for anything else continues to undermine the value of women in the workforce and in society in general. Another myth about women is that women don't enjoy sex. So any woman who participates in pornography or other sex work is obviously coerced or forced to engage in sexual activity. Well, aside from sex trafficking, women choose various kinds of sex work, including pornography, because it pays well and it comes with many perks that one doesn't get when working for a corporation. There is also the argument that pornography objectifies women. Well, yes, it does. That's the whole purpose of it. It also objectifies men. Some men and women like being desired, admired, fantasized about. They like the attention, the fame, the following they get from participating in pornography. One thing pornography opponents rarely mention is that so much pornography now is amateur. People are making their own movies. They take their own nude selfies and post them on social media. They start their own webcam channels, including women who have college degrees. While there are still professional pornographers, most people don't buy pornography anymore because it's mostly free. The concept of pornography addiction isn't going away anytime soon. As I always say, what's most important is that you feel good about yourself. If abstaining from pornography enhances the intimacy in your relationships and it helps you feel better about yourself, then keep doing what you're doing. No one is living your life but you, and you are the only one responsible for managing your sexual behavior. I'm Dr. Stephen Davidson, the Sexual Integrity Coach. If you found this information informative, please click the like button and definitely subscribe if you have not already. Please also pick up copies of my books, Sexual Integrity, Finding the Courage to Be Yourself, or Peaceful Mind, Peaceful Life, the Guidebook to Happiness. You will find links to both of these books on my website at sexualintegritycoach.com.